Padme left Coruscant with an uneasy heart, feeling a growing weight from Anakin's absence. Before departing, she looked at Obi-Wan and said, "I don't know where Anakin is." Kenobi merely nodded, keeping a watchful and silent gaze, and walked away as if letting her go alone. However, without her noticing, he boarded the ship and hid among the cargo compartments. Padme set the coordinates for Mustafar and murmured to herself, "Wait for me, Anakin." The ship lifted off, cutting through the sky toward the volcanic planet. The transition to hyperspace began, but the navigation panel displayed an unexpected fluctuation. Alarms sounded in sequence, and error messages began flashing on the screen. A gravitational anomaly crossed the programmed route, interfering with the jump. Ancient beacons from Lothal, long forgotten in space, emitted signals that confused the navigation system. The ship was pulled out of hyperspace, spinning out of control until it emerged near a strange atmosphere. On the panel, critical hyperdrive failures accumulated. The planet ahead was Lothal, with its plains and unique rock formations. Padme attempted to contact via the emergency channel, but the transmitter was damaged. The only option was to pilot manually. She focused and guided the ship until it touched down, skidding for a long distance before stopping with a jolt. The impact threw Obi-Wan against a console, knocking him unconscious. Padme ran to him, checked his breathing, and found he was stable. "Obi-Wan," she called, but there was no response. She improvised a sling for his injured arm and covered him with a thermal blanket. The ship emitted smoke and small sparks, revealing the damage to the engine. "I need help and parts immediately," she decided. She disembarked and surveyed the horizon. Lothal's plains stretched out in silence, interrupted by rocky towers that looked like sentinels. Following an instinct she couldn't explain, she walked toward a distant formation that stood out. An ancient temple rose there, radiating a strange energy. "Something is guiding me," she murmured, feeling drawn toward it. With each step, her body seemed lighter. A gentle breeze blew toward her, almost pushing her forward. It was not mere intuition. There was an invisible force leading her. She did not know it, but it was the influence of Luke and Leia's midichlorians, still within her womb. These midichlorians, inherited from Anakin, himself conceived by the Force, made Padme feel an inexplicable familiarity with that place. Upon crossing the entrance, silence took over. The echo of her footsteps resonated like a ritual sound. The walls were covered with ancient symbols, wolves, stars, and portals. In the center, a large wall with intricate drawings seemed to watch her. As she approached, the figures began to move as if coming to life. Padme felt her heart race and lightly touched the wall. The lines began to swirl, forming constellations and patterns that aligned. A deep hum filled the chamber, and an oval portal of bluish light appeared before her. "What is this place?" she whispered. She didn't know, but she was standing before something rare. The world between worlds, a realm outside time and space, accessible only to those with a unique connection to the Force. Few can cross this portal. An extraordinary connection to the Force is required, and Padme possessed it indirectly, through the children she carried. The Force, through them, recognized her as worthy to enter. Feeling the call intensify, she knew she could not ignore it. She looked back, remembering Obi-Wan unconscious on the ship. "I'll be quick, I promise," she said to herself, then took a step forward. The air warmed, and the light took shape, like a living path opening to welcome her. Padme entered, feeling herself surrounded by energy. In an instant, everything was silent. There was no wind, weight, or sound. She seemed to float in an infinite space, surrounded by white trails crossing like rivers in the sky. Suspended doors appeared on either side, and Padme knew she was standing at a sacred threshold. The world between worlds unfolded before Padme as a space impossible to describe. Luminous trails cut through the void, connecting arches that led to portals suspended in nothingness. The floor beneath her feet was black as obsidian, reflecting her image with a soft sheen. Time had no form there. Past, present, and future seemed to blend into a single moment. Padme advanced slowly, absorbing every detail, as if her very existence were being rewritten with each step. The first portal to her right showed Naboo in full spring. She saw herself younger, walking through the palace gardens, full of ideals and courage. She heard again the cheerful conversations with her aides and the laughter of children playing in the fountains. It was like reliving a fragment of life that still pulsed within her. She felt pride for the woman she had been, but also a pang in her heart knowing that ahead lay decisions that would change everything. The second portal revealed Tatooine, with its relentless deserts. A boy with curious eyes worked on a pod racer, covered in grease and sand. "Anakin?" she murmured, feeling the same emotions as when she first met him. The hope in his eyes was almost a call to something greater. Padme reached out, as if wanting to touch that scene and protect that innocence. Continuing, she saw the moment of their secret wedding. Rain fell softly over the lake in Naboo, while Anakin held her hands, trembling with emotion. "I love you, Padme," he said, and she replied by promising to stand by his side no matter what. The scene glowed brightly and then dissipated, leaving in its wake a mix of joy and melancholy. Suddenly, the glow shifted, and the next scene made her instinctively step back. Anakin knelt before Palpatine, who now showed yellow eyes and a poisonous smile. "Rise, Lord Vader," the Chancellor said, his voice dripping with malice. Padme felt the weight of those words, recognizing the beginning of the fall of the man she loved. Another portal opened, showing the Jedi Temple in flames. Children ran desperately through the halls, while Anakin, lightsaber ignited, advanced without mercy. "This can't be true," she whispered, bringing her hand to her face. The scene vanished, but the impact etched itself into her soul. She walked faster until a portal to the left showed the birth of the Empire. Palpatine spoke before the Senate of Coruscant, with clone troopers already converted into Imperial guards. Red banners fell over the buildings, and applause drowned out the sound of freedoms being destroyed. Suddenly, ahead, a different scene appeared. A young Jedi trained with Yoda in a swamp. "Created by life, the Force is," the Master said, while Luke absorbed every word. "Between us, it is. Unite us, it can." Padme felt warmth in her chest upon hearing that. It was like a fragment of hope in the midst of so much darkness. Continuing, she saw that same Jedi facing the Emperor. Bolts of energy crackled across the throne, but Luke resisted, refusing to give in to hatred. In the end, the tyrant fell, and compassion triumphed over the cycle of hate. Padme smiled, feeling there was an invisible link binding her to that young man. The last portal surprised her even more. It showed Luke older, isolated on an island surrounded by stormy seas. He looked over his shoulder, as if sensing her presence, and their eyes met. Padme lost her breath. How could he see her? In her womb, Luke and Leia moved, and she understood she needed to speak to that man. The portal began to vibrate and open toward the island. "Guide me, Force," she said, reaching out and stepping through the light. The temperature changed, and the smell of salt and rock filled her senses. At the top of the island, a man in simple robes watched her. His eyes carried a mix of surprise and restrained emotion. "Mom," he murmured, too low for her to hear. Padme took cautious steps up the steep slope of the island, the cold wind hitting her face and making her dress ripple. Luke did not move from where he stood, but his eyes never left her face, as if trying to absorb every detail to keep in his memory. When she reached a safe distance, she stopped and spoke firmly. "Master Luke, I need your help." Her voice carried urgency and hope, the sound of the sea filling the silence between them. Luke took a deep breath, as if struggling to remain composed. Those features, he knew them better than any other, but not from this time. His eyes began to fill with tears, and Padme noticed something unusual in his expression. "Are you all right?" she asked with genuine concern. Luke blinked a few times before replying, "Yes. How can I help you?" He knew he could not waste this moment, no matter how impossible it was. "I know I am in another time and that this meeting is not something common," Padme said, looking him directly in the eyes. My husband, Anakin Skywalker, needs help. He is following a path where I cannot go. I love him, but I fear what is to come." Luke lowered his gaze, absorbing every word, and felt the weight of a destiny he knew too well. Luke raised his head and spoke calmly. "Anakin fears losing those he loves. That fear will turn into anger, and the anger will drag him into the abyss. If you want to change this destiny, you must act now. Don't hide anything from him. Tell the truth, no matter how hard it is. Call Obi-Wan, join forces, and face Palpatine before he completes his plans." Padme frowned, reflecting on the advice, and realized there was truth in every word. "Anakin needs to learn to choose love without turning it into possession," Luke continued. "He must understand that he cannot control life and death, but he can do the right thing to protect those he loves without becoming corrupted. You need to break the chain of fear before it imprisons you both. Your children deserve a future free of empire and tyranny." Padme took a deep breath and said firmly, "I will do it. I will not let him be lost." Luke took a breath, looking toward the island's horizon before continuing, "Padme, if nothing changes, Anakin will become Palpatine's right hand. He will lead the extermination of the Jedi and become a symbol of fear across the galaxy. The Republic you know will be destroyed, replaced by an empire that subjugates entire planets and peoples. Your voice, which once defended freedom in the Senate, will be silenced by his shadow." Padme narrowed her eyes, absorbing every word. Luke stepped closer and continued, "Palpatine will manipulate his fear until Anakin believes that everything he does is to save you. But that is a lie. He will use that love as a chain to control him, turning him into something he is not. If you do not act together now, he will be lost to a darkness that will erase everything you both built." The wind picked up, as if reinforcing the gravity of what was being said. Luke kept his tone firm. "When Palpatine takes control, worlds that resist will be crushed. None will be safe. Children will grow up knowing only oppression, and fear will be the only law. That is the future rushing toward you, if nothing changes." Padme felt a shiver run down her spine, but stood firm. Luke finally placed his hands on her shoulders and said, "I know it is hard to believe that the man you love could become that, but it is the truth. The only way to stop it is to show him who Palpatine really is and remind him that true love frees, it doesn't imprison. You must break this trap before it closes." Then Luke stepped forward and knelt before her, with a reverent gesture. "May I?" he asked softly and gently. Surprised, Padme nodded, watching him place his hand on her belly. His eyes closed, and the environment seemed to fall silent as if even the sea stopped to listen. Padme felt something different, an energy spreading from where he touched. What is this I'm feeling?" she asked, almost breathless. Luke gave a small smile and replied, "The Force is what creates life, what makes everything grow. It connects everything that exists, and today it flows through you in a special way." Padme stood still, feeling the energy course through her body, and realized it was not only hers. Luke and Leia, in her womb, were the link that made it possible. Luke raised his gaze and, in a tone reminiscent of his old master, quoted, "Created by life, the Force is. Make everything grow, it does. Luminous beings are we, not this crude matter." Padme smiled faintly, absorbing those words, feeling each syllable take root in her as an eternal lesson. "Close your eyes," Luke said softly, "and feel the Force flow through you. Don't try to control it. Just let it pass like the wind crossing a field. It will show you the way when the time comes." Padme obeyed, and a tear slid down her face. "This is beautiful," she murmured, moved. Luke then stood and said, "You feel this because of them. Your children are like beacons across time. They call and answer, creating paths we don't always understand." Padme placed her hands on her belly and said, "I feel them more than ever." He whispered quietly, almost inaudible, "So do I." Behind them, the air began to distort and shimmer. The portal had returned, pulsing as if calling Padme back. Luke lifted his head and said, "Yes, it's time." Padme stepped closer, took his hands and said, "Thank you, Master Luke." He tried to smile, but his eyes still shone with emotion. On impulse, she hugged him tightly. Luke was surprised but returned the embrace, feeling that moment imprint itself forever in his memory. "I'm the one who's grateful for the visit," he replied. Padme stepped back, walked to the portal and said, "Goodbye, Luke. May the Force be with you." Luke replied, "May the Force be with you," and too low for her to hear, added, "Mom." Padme reappeared in the world between worlds with a clarity of purpose she had not felt before. The obsidian floor gleamed beneath her feet as the luminous arches around her pulsed, as if recognizing her decision. She walked with a firm stride, refusing to be distracted by distant voices or the images appearing in nearby portals. Her mind was fixed on only one destination: return to Lothal, find Obi-Wan, and go to Anakin with the truth Luke had just entrusted to her. Along the way, several portals opened, showing scenes that might have tempted her to stop. In one, she saw Naboo at peace, with her people smiling as if nothing bad could happen. In another, she glimpsed herself and Anakin raising their children together, far from war. But Padme knew those images were only possibilities, not guarantees. She could not lose herself in them. She had to fight for the one future she believed in. As she advanced, a portal to the left showed a vision that made her pause for a moment. Palpatine alone in a dark hall, wearing a triumphant smile. Behind him, Imperial banners replaced the symbol of the Republic. Padme closed her eyes and stepped away, as if rejecting the very idea. "No, it will not be like this," she murmured, resuming her pace without looking back. The bridge ahead began to narrow, leading her toward an arch she recognized. It was the same glowing entrance that had brought her here. The hum in the air grew louder, and she felt as if the portal were calling her by name. "I'm ready," she said softly but firmly. In her womb, Luke and Leia moved, and Padme took it as a sign she was making the right choice. Passing through the portal, she returned to the temple hall on Lothal. The walls were silent and still, as if nothing had happened there. The hum was gone, and the air felt cooler. For a moment, she wondered if it had all been a dream, but the certainty in her heart told her otherwise. Touching her belly, she murmured, "You led me to him, thank you." Padme walked quickly out of the temple, keeping her eyes fixed on the horizon. The sky over Lothal was beginning to brighten, painted with shades of orange and gold. The morning's cold wind touched her face, but she did not slow her pace. She needed to find Obi-Wan and leave before any delay could compromise the plan forming in her mind. In the distance, she saw the silhouette of the ship. Smoke was still rising from some points of the hull, but it looked ready to fly. Padme quickened her pace, her heart beating faster with every step. Soon she saw a figure on the ramp. Obi-Wan, unsteady but standing. "Obi-Wan," she called, and he looked up, relieved to see her. "Padme, are you all right?" he asked, coming down the ramp to meet her. "I managed to fix the basics of the hyperdrive, but I was worried about you. When I woke and saw you weren't on the ship, I went looking for you." She nodded, still catching her breath from the walk, and replied, "I'm fine, but I need to tell you what I saw." Obi-Wan frowned but knew it was not the time for long explanations. "We can talk on the way to Mustafar. If you found what you needed, we have no time to waste." Padme agreed but added firmly, "Yes, we will. But this time we're not going there just for me to meet Anakin. We're going to change the future." The two boarded the ship, and Padme took the pilot's seat while Obi-Wan checked the final adjustments. She felt the engine vibrate under her feet, still fragile but functional. "If all goes well, we'll have a direct jump to Mustafar," she said. Obi-Wan glanced at her and commented, "You seem different, determined in a way I didn't see even in the most intense days of the Senate." "I've been to a place that showed me what's to come," Padme said, without taking her eyes off the controls. "And I met someone who gave us the answers we need." Obi-Wan stayed silent for a few seconds, taking in the weight of her words. "Who?" he asked at last. She simply replied, "A Jedi from the future." The hyperspace jump was set, and the ship began to turn slowly, aligning with the coordinates. Padme felt a chill down her spine, not from fear, but from anticipation. It was as if each second brought her closer not just to Anakin, but to the choice that would define the galaxy's destiny. As the engines built up energy for the jump, Obi-Wan looked at her and said, "Padme, if what you saw is true, we're about to face something bigger than we imagined. I hope you're ready for what's coming." She answered without hesitation, "I am." And this time, Anakin won't face it alone. The starfield ahead distorted, and the ship plunged into hyperspace. The steady hum of the journey filled the cockpit, creating a strange calm within the vessel. Padme closed her eyes for a moment, feeling Luke's words echo in her mind again. It was as if he were still there, guiding her. As the jump continued, she placed a hand over her belly. "We will save him, not just for us, but for everyone," she whispered, as if speaking to Luke and Leia. Obi-Wan glanced at her briefly, and although he didn't understand all her words, he could sense there was something different about this mission, something that made Padme stronger than ever. The ship was about to exit hyperspace, and Padme knew that upon arrival she would have to face an Anakin torn between anger and love. But this time, it wasn't just about stopping him from turning against the Jedi. It was about preventing the entire galaxy from falling into Palpatine's hands. And for that, she was ready to face anything. The ship emerged from hyperspace above Mustafar, the planet's heat seeming to radiate through the hull. Rivers of lava snaked across the blackened surface, lighting the horizon with a threatening glow. Padme landed the ship near the industrial complex, choosing a point far enough to keep some distance, but close enough to reach Anakin quickly. Before disembarking, she turned to Obi-Wan and said, "Stay on the ship, please. Trust me, Obi-Wan. I need to talk to him alone first." The Jedi hesitated but saw the determination in her eyes and nodded. Walking along the metal walkways, Padme felt the hot, heavy air making each breath harder. When she finally saw Anakin, he stood with his back to her, staring at the lava with his lightsaber at his belt, motionless as a statue. "Anakin!" she called, and he turned, surprised, though his expression was a mix of relief and tension. "Padme, you came." She approached slowly, keeping calm. "I came because there's still time, but I need you to listen to me. I've seen what's going to happen, and it's not the future you want for us." Anakin frowned, his voice tinged with suspicion. "What do you mean by that? Who showed you something like this?" Padme took a deep breath. "A Jedi named Luke. He told me what you will do if you follow this path and what Palpatine really is." The unfamiliar name seemed to intrigue him. "Luke? I don't know that Jedi." Padme stepped closer and said firmly, "He came from a time where you not only lose yourself, but become Palpatine's most powerful weapon. You exterminate the Jedi, destroy the Republic, and help create an empire that subjugates the entire galaxy." Anakin stepped back, as if those words were a physical blow. "That's a lie," he replied, though there was uncertainty in his tone. "Palpatine is my friend. He wants to help me save you." Padme didn't break eye contact. "He's using your fear, Anakin. He knows you dream of my death and is offering poison disguised as a cure. Luke told me the only way to break this is to face him now, before it's too late." At that moment, Obi-Wan appeared in the distance, watching without intervening. Anakin looked from Padme to the Jedi Master and asked, "Did you know anything about this?" Obi-Wan took a few steps forward and replied, "I know Palpatine is not who he appears to be, and if Padme says you will lose yourself because of him, I believe her. I'm here to fight by your side, Anakin, not against you." The tension in the air felt almost tangible. Anakin looked back at Padme, and for a moment, saw in her eyes not judgment but a sincere plea. "I don't want to lose you," he said, his voice breaking. "Then don't lose us to hate," she replied. "Don't become what you fear. Fight for us, not for him." Finally, Anakin nodded. "If it's a fight, then we'll fight Palpatine together." Obi-Wan approached, and the three quickly returned to the ship, setting coordinates for Coruscant. None of them spoke, but their shared resolve filled the silence. Upon arrival, they went straight to the Senate, where Palpatine awaited in his office. The Chancellor greeted them with a calculated smile. "What a surprise, Knight Skywalker. Have you come to claim the power you desire?" Anakin stepped forward and replied firmly, "I've come to take back the power you stole from the Republic." The mask fell, and Palpatine's yellow eyes revealed the Sith behind the disguise. Bolts of energy exploded from his hands, but Anakin and Obi-Wan deflected them, advancing in perfect synchrony. The duel began, lightning and sabers lighting the chamber while Padme kept her distance, ready to act if an opening appeared. Palpatine tried to separate the two Jedi, but each attack was met with a joint defense. "Your fear brought you to me, Anakin," the Sith taunted. "Your love will make you weak in the final moment." Anakin replied forcefully, "Love makes me stronger than you will ever be." Obi-Wan seized the distraction and forced Palpatine to retreat. The fight intensified until Anakin disarmed the Emperor with a precise strike. Without hesitation, Obi-Wan used his saber to end the threat. Palpatine fell, and silence filled the chamber. Anakin deactivated his saber and looked at Padme, who ran to him and embraced him tightly. "It's over, Anakin. Truly over." Days later, on Naboo, Padme gave birth. Anakin was at her side, holding her hand. When the cry of a baby boy echoed in the room, she looked at him with an emotional smile and said, "His name will be Luke, in honor of the Jedi who saved our family." Anakin smiled, feeling that the name carried something deeper, something he did not fully understand, but that tied him to a different destiny. As Luke grew, Padme began to notice details beyond his resemblance to Anakin. The way he looked at people, the calm he projected even in tense situations, and even small expressions when he spoke, all reminded her of the Jedi she had met on the island in the world between worlds. One day, seeing him help Leia with patience and a faint smile, the same Luke from the future had given her before saying goodbye, Padme felt her heart race. It wasn't just a memory, it was certainty. The Jedi who had advised her, touched her belly, and spoken of love and the Force was her own son, Luke, from a distant time, come to save them. This revelation left her still for a moment, overwhelmed by emotion and gratitude. She understood that the Force had not only united paths but created a bond that crossed time, allowing mother and son to meet before he was even born. Watching Luke train in the yard with Obi-Wan, Padme smiled with tears in her eyes and thought, "You came to save us, and I always knew something special connected us." In that moment, more than ever, she understood that the galaxy's destiny had changed because, one day, in the place between all places, mother and son had met as strangers, but recognized each other through the Force.